I went to the doctor because I went through a depressive period in my life again. And he put me on a new medication.
Oh.
And I didn't know this, but I know now. One of the side effects is that it makes you not able to.
Yeah.
And so I can jerk off for hours, like literally hours, until my body is dripping in sweat and my arm is about to fall off and I cannot.
That's very unfortunate.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm not depressed. The bad news is I have no reason to live. Do you identify as a unicorn? Are you unhinged? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Unhinged Unicorns. All right, welcome back to another episode of Unhinged Unicorns. My name is Josh. I am your host, along with my co-host, Stefania.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So for those of you listening, you may be aware that this is our first recording in what, like...
Over 2 months.
It's
probably been over
It's been 84 years.
It has been 84 years.
It's been 84 years.
You do that well.
Thank you. I'm surprised that I do it well rather than you.
Why? Because I'm the old person here?
Because you're an old lady.
I am.
I've seen you pull out glasses, a crochet set.
No. It was embroidery.
I'm sorry. Embroidery. You pulled out your embroidery set.
I did.
And your glasses. And you like pursed your lips like an old lady and just went in on that thread and needle while we were at a f***ing meeting.
Can I tell you though, I love it so much.
I know you do. You could do that and put on The Queen on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
And you would be
Perfect
like
afternoon.
nutting. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be nutting because I am old, you know.
Nutting to the old lady.
Oh, I have to tell you, this is new information.
Oh,
so,
relating to the old lady and nutting?
Well, let me hold on. Let me clarify. So
Yeah.
I went to the doctor because I went through a depressive period in my life again. And he put me on a new medication, Paxil.
Oh.
And Paxil, I didn't know this, but I know now, one of the side effects of Paxil is that it makes you not able to come.
Yeah.
And so I can jerk off for hours, like literally hours, until my body is dripping in sweat and my arm is about to fall off and I cannot come.
That's very unfortunate.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm not depressed. The bad news is I have no reason to live.
You know, I have a similar story to that effect. When I was in treatment for 2 months, and there were cameras in our bedroom. So I never like masturbated in my bedroom because, well, there was one time where I was desperate. And I did end up doing that, but I can't remember if they did take out my camera or if I just didn't give a and I did it anyway. But they ended up, at one point, they took cameras out of our bedrooms near the end before I left. But yeah, I wasn't able to do any of that stuff for over 2 months, and that's like crazy for me because I have a very high, we both have very high sex drives, and we love to doodle our noodle.
Yes, we do. Noodle doodling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's a little bit of an invasion of privacy to have a camera in the room.
Well, it's so that they don't have to do like actual rounds. So if they can just see that we're in bed and see a little bit of movement of us breathing, then they don't have to come into our rooms every 30 minutes to an hour. I remember when we were at a different treatment center together, they would do those rounds on all of the houses, and there were a few times when they would just open my door and I'd like jerk awake.
You would jerk awake?
Oh, I would jerk awake. I'd be like,
So I went to that treatment center twice.
Yeah.
The first time that I went, there was a guy, he was like the overnight person, and he would always come around and do rounds. And I remember I was jerking off in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I mean, this had to have been at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And dude just opens my door, flashlight, and there I am, just whacking it. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, that's not the first time that's happened to you, huh, Josh?
Oh my God, the worst. I have an embarrassing story.
Yeah, oh my God. It wouldn't be Unhinged Unicorns if you didn't have an embarrassing story
Oh
to
my
share with
God,
all
this
of
is
us.
so bad. I'm even traumatized reliving just telling the story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, after I went to treatment the first time, I lived on my own for like 3 years. And then this was back 1,000 years ago when we had a recession and I lost my job.
2008?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, it was 2010 around the time this happened. So
Okay.
I had lost my job, couldn't find work, and I moved back home with my parents.
Oh, no.
And so I'm like 25, I think, at this point. And like I had been on my own now for a little bit of time. And my freaking parents, like, love them dearly, but they were trying to impose like a midnight curfew on me, like treating me like I was
You
a
were
kid
25.
again. Yeah. Well, at one point I had gotten my computer out. I was going to have some quality me time.
Yeah, self-care.
Got my laptop out. I'm butt naked. Let me paint a picture for you.
You were buck naked.
Butt naked on the bed with my laptop. And the way that the room was set up is that the head of the bed was against like the wall with the windows. And at the foot of the bed in the corner was the door to the room. And I didn't know this, but when I was gone for those 3 years that I lived in Florida, my parents had done some remodeling. And I didn't know this, but they put new bedroom doors on all the bedrooms. Well, I guess with this particular door, I didn't know this, but they had trimmed it wrong. And so it was cut just a little bit short. Now, in preparation for my quality me time, I did the right thing and I locked the door. But I didn't know that it was cut short, which therefore meant locking or latching the door was basically just a mere suggestion. And so my mom, oh my God, my mom, she goes to knock on my door and just opens it. She knocks, yes, but she opens it simultaneously.
Yeah, she does the little knock, but still opens it.
Yeah. So I hear, mind you, I'm like spread eagle. My laptop is playing some homosexual porn.
Yeah.
Which is aimed so she can see the screen.
No!
So she walks into me like spread eagle, facing her, porn playing toward her. And all I hear, because I'm distracted, all I hear is knock, knock, Josh, and then click. And I've never said anything about it, and she has never brought it up. And so it's just this unspoken trauma between the both of us.
See, at the treatment center we were at the same time, those doors never locked, and a lot of the techs would just like mosey on in, especially when they were like waking us up or gathering us for group to like go eat breakfast and stuff. And I was deathly afraid of anybody walking in on me, like not even like fully naked, but even like half naked, half dressed. I was terrified because I had such bad like body dysmorphia and self-esteem, and I was like, oh my God, please don't walk in here. So I think there was like a chair for the desk in my room, and every time I would be getting ready, I would push it against the door so that there was some kind of like obstacle to at least allow me to like get something to cover up if they did decide to just come in.
I never had anyone walk in on me like that, except for the guy that was doing the night checks.
Luckily, no one did walk in, or one time they did, but I'd already like put on the last of my clothing, and I was like, thank God.
I just feel like that's such a like invasion of privacy.
I know.
To just walk in, like at least knock, like give a second notice.
Well, a lot of times they'll do the thing that your mom did, where it's like the knock is like kind of a forced politeness that you just do before you do what you're intending to do, which is just to open the door and not like think about what the person might be doing on the other side.
I don't know. It's just, it's courageous.
Yes, I know. Whenever I'm like at my job, I'm a tech at a treatment center, and whenever I have to go into the bedrooms for like the guys to either get them for meds or to just do rounds to see that they're all like accounted for, I'll like knock and wait for them to say yes or come in, and because I'm just like, I just know someone's jerking off in there, and I do not want to walk in on that.
Yeah, I think you would be traumatized. How do I get a
Yes.
job where you work?
What?
How do I get a job?
Oh no, you would hate it.
Oh, I'm sure. I probably would.
Yeah, you would hate it, but I guess the elephant in the room.
Why you got to talk about me like that?
That's not what I meant.
Uh-huh.
I guess what should be talked about, addressed as if you were, I mean, if you,
If I was what?
like I meant, if you will,
If I will. Shall we take that again?
yeah,
Okay, and action.
I guess the thing that I can address of my absence from not being here for a while. I went to treatment at a place like out in Ocala.
Like the middle of nowhere. Like I went to
Yeah.
visit, and the first time I went out there, I was like, blink if you need rescuing. Like,
Yeah, it was just like all country roads.
yes.
No
middle of nowhere.
taking me home. Definitely Trump country.
Oh, yeah.
There were so many flags and like memorabilia
Yes.
about Republicanism.
Every time I went out to visit you, I was always afraid I was going to like get lynched or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was definitely in that part of Florida. But the treatment center I was at, though, was really cool. It was for eating disorders and substance abuse. And they also have a separate track just for trauma-focused therapy and groups and stuff.
Okay.
And they deal with, like, a lot of really heavy trauma in the groups there. Like, a lot of them, whenever we would attend those groups, it would be just very, very heavy stuff. And there would be a lot of times where people would need to step out because it can be really triggering. And people they didn't hold back with the they were talking about.
Yeah.
And they weren't afraid to get descriptive.
Wow. Would that be triggering like to the other people in the group?
Yeah. So the therapists have kind of said, if you want, you can say trigger warning and give like a content warning about what you're about to process, share about, or like get off your chest. I was there for the eating disorder track, and there were specific like ED groups, and we also attended stuff. We always called it the trauma and recovery side, or TNR, because in the ED like building, our therapists were there, we had a nurse, the techs were there, our rooms were there, the kitchen, bathrooms, like pretty much everything was there. So whenever they told us to go to different groups that weren't being held in that building, we would just go over to TNR side, which was just like an administrative building that had a bunch of rooms for various groups going on during the day, every day. And we had a different schedule from other people. But there were a few groups that my therapist wanted me to go to, and that was anger management.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so I attended a few anger management groups, and there was a grief group that I went to in regards to like my grief about my dad. And it's also like, it was cool because it wasn't just pertaining to death of loved ones or family or whatever. It was grieving like a relationship or a job or like a marriage, going through a divorce. Like there are many meanings to what you can grieve. And I really felt that for more than just like going through stuff with my dad. I felt it with a close friend that I'd had for a long time, and with us just kind of shutting that down and having like a friend breakup or separation, and going our separate ways as if like nothing ever happened. And it felt very much like a death of a friendship, where it was just one day it's normal, the next day it's just like cut off.
Yeah.
And it felt really painful, and I was going through it, and those feelings were kind of brought back while being there. And something that surprised me the most when I was there is that my therapist told me that I don't seem codependent at all. And I was like, are you sure?
Really?
Yeah, well, I think it's because of I was so enthusiastic and proactive about my recovery. I think I didn't get caught up in the cliques.
Okay.
And with like the other girls that were there, like I was friendly and I shared a lot of laughs and like deep conversations with people, but I wasn't really waiting around for people before going to groups on the other side. If I needed to do something for my recovery, I was going to do it. If one of my friends in treatment were like feeling really triggered by something that happened in group, but I was fine, I'm not going to follow them out there like I would have in the past.
Okay.
I'm not responsible for their recovery and their feelings, and they have to go through what they're going through. And I didn't have like that savior complex that I've always struggled with for other people.
Yeah.
And I actually started noticing when other people would do that around me, I'd be like, oh, they're trying to distract from what's really going on with them.
Right.
Like, we can say it's a selfless endeavor to go and try to save other people, but I feel at the end of the day, I mean, of course, it's very situational too, but in my opinion, at the end of the day, I feel it is a huge distraction from what we've got going on with ourselves.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely struggle with the Captain Fix-A-Hoe.
Yes.
And not just in relationships, like romantic relationships, but I think as a result of my own trauma and the chaotic upbringing that I went through, I've become very perceptive and in tune with what I perceive other people are going through. So
Yeah.
if someone seems even just a little bit off, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. Oh my God. Can we just talk about that though? Like, because I'm in a relationship and I've been noticing lately more and more that I haven't been trusting her at her word. Like, whenever she says something either like about my appearance, it's mostly about like my appearance and stuff, or if she says that she loves me or that she finds me like sexy or like very pretty or attractive, there's just something so deep down that like, oh, she's lying to you. She's lying to me. She's just saying that to appease me, to like not hurt my feelings. She's just settling for me. Like all of those really negative self-talk thoughts, but also a lot of those self-sabotaging thoughts. And I'm like, why is it so hard for me to believe her? And I'm finding that I have really bad trust issues just because in the past it's been like I'll like trust somebody at their word, but then they won't like follow through, or they were lying to me about it, or their intentions weren't what they said they were. And I think I feel that a lot too with my history with my dad, where he would say all these things, but his actions never followed up with them. And with my girlfriend, there have been times in the past where she wasn't lying by any means, and we were both being like completely honest with each other, but a lot of times she has been afraid to say no to me whenever we'd like want to be intimate on the phone, because in her past, her past exes would kind of be really toxic to her if she wasn't in the mood to do certain things.
Right.
And so it kind of made her over the years like afraid to say she's not in the mood or she doesn't want to do something. So because I had experienced that with her, I'm like, oh my God, what if she's only doing this because she feels obligated to?
Right.
And I have a really hard time believing that. And it reminds me of my dad, because when he was alive, he would like dig at somebody if their tone was just a little bit off or if their facial features were not exactly how he thought they should be. He would be like, why are you mad? Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you angry? Are you upset? Like, why are you mad at me? Can we just talk about it? And I find myself doing that too. And I hate it.
Yeah.
Can I just have some chill and like believe someone at their word when they say, no, I'm good?
Well, it's interesting to me because I think what you're describing, there's different levels of codependency. So
Yeah.
on one hand, you've got the Captain Fix-A-Ho concept that we were just talking about. But then on the other hand, for someone like you and I who struggle with body dysmorphia and self-esteem issues and, basically trauma from being bullied by people closest to us, that kind of translates into sometimes where I will project my negative self-talk onto someone else, meaning that I think that they, like the same thing that you were just talking about, where I can't trust that when they say they're attracted to me, I don't believe it but it's not a them issue. It's
Exactly.
I don't believe that about myself.
It's me.
And so I'm projecting that onto them and not trusting them. But I think over time, I have seen a shift in that. Like if I'm with someone who tells me that they're into bigger guys, I will trust at their word. I trust that because I've seen the action behind it.
Yeah.
Like if I can tell when someone's attracted to me.
Yeah.
And especially like during intimacy, I can definitely tell when someone's attracted to me. So if I'm around someone who I know is attracted to me and I believe that, I'm very confident. Like I have no problem getting naked. But I remember a time in my life where, like you were talking about earlier, where I was so afraid of showing any part of my body.
Yeah.
I remember specifically in 7th grade, I was a big kid. And
Me too.
my parents, actually, it wasn't even my parents. It was this coach at school. He was one of the teachers, and he was like the football coach and wrestling coach. And every time I would see him in the hallway, he would be like, you got to play football. Oh. Like he was so persistent that I needed to join the football team. And as you know, I have no desire to play football. So I didn't want anything to do with that. And he was so persistent that he finally convinced me to join the wrestling team. And I didn't know anything about sports. And so I went, and I remember the first practice, they made us run laps. Girl. I thought I was going to die. But anyway, I did that for a whole season. And, there was a lot of parts of that were traumatizing to me because, number one, if you're not familiar with wrestling, they make you wear these like spandex.
Oh my God.
They're called singlets. And they are very form-fitting.
Yeah.
And they show off every curve. Or every bulge. And I mean, the one good thing that I enjoyed is that there was this one guy. Oh my God, he was so hot. And during practice, I remember I would just love wrestling with him because my God, he was beautiful.
I was going to say, I bet you loved just like getting up and close with him.
Oh my God.
You're like, oh, I'm sorry, I grabbed your balls by accident.
Well, because they start you off in this position where you're like on your hands and knees on all fours.
Yeah.
And then the other person gets behind you and they put their arm like around your waist. And I just remember being like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
This is heaven. But then I also remember being super self-conscious. Like I didn't want to show off all my... all the things, so, but anyway, I remember one time we had to go to this wrestling meet and it was at another school And I was so embarrassed to change in front of
Yeah.
the teammates. And so I had like this locker room that they had us in was like connected to another locker room that was empty and the lights were all off in there. And so I snuck into there to change. And I had gotten fully undressed. And right as I'm like butt naked in the dark changing, another school comes in,
Oh my God.
turns on the lights, and they all just started laughing at me.
Oh no.
It was horrible. Horrible. So like that's definitely one of those trauma experiences for me.
I
So
hate that.
for like the longest time, I was so afraid to get naked in front of people. Like
I mean, understandably.
the thought of, like having sex when I was young, like that was so terrifying to me. Like I remember thinking to myself, like when I do have sex, I'm going to have to keep the lights off.
Yeah.
Like I don't want them to see me. But
Yeah.
that has changed over time. Like I'm not super self-conscious like that. Now,
That's good.
I'm still self-conscious when I'm out in public,
Yeah.
like going to the beach. I don't like to go without a shirt on. I've done it before. And that was something that I really challenged myself to do a few years ago, but I haven't done it since, and I've gained weight since then too. So like, I think it brought back a lot of that insecurity.
Yeah. I know with me that had definitely come back full force because I gained a lot of weight in this past relapse before going back to treatment. And it's almost been a year, and I know that like all my favorite clothes that I had just like started not fitting, and I've had to like buy new clothes, and it made me so upset. And it also made me feel really insecure because the clothes that I used to feel comfortable in and also confident in, I started to feel like, oh my God, I hate this. And I started saying, I hate these clothes now, and I hate my body. And then eventually my cute little bathing suit that I got a while ago just wasn't fitting. And I had to go back to like wearing, like I think one time I resorted to wearing clothes again in the pool. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it felt like such a setback because taking off my clothes and being like in an actual bathing suit was like a really big step for me in my recovery. And I don't know, I feel like I kind of took it back when I went to the treatment center because they had a pool. And when I went to the pool, they wanted to play like water volleyball. Mm-hmm. And at first in my head, I was like, oh my God, no, that's going to be like so much jumping and moving around. And I just know my arms are going to like jiggle and jump, and my boobs and like my stomach is just going to be like flapping in the wind. And I'm like, oh God, no, that's going to look so bad. But then I ended up playing with them, and we were just laughing. All of us was just like laughing so much, and it was so much fun. And I ended up like really like getting into the game, and I was like diving and like jumping in the pool to try and get it. And I was like punching the ball, and I was like falling back into the water, and I just like completely forgot about those self-conscious, like dysmorphic thoughts about myself, and I was just able to let go and have some fun like I wanted
just
to.
Enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I was able to just enjoy the moment.
Well, I will say this. While you were in treatment, I also went to treatment.
Yeah.
But I did an outpatient program, so I didn't stay there on site, but I learned a lot from it. The program that I went to, which is similar to the program that you went to this time, they teach like an intuitive eating approach, which is totally different from the prior treatment experience that I've had. So the previous treatment program that I went to was like an abstinence-based approach. And there are 12-step programs that both, like some of them go for like the abstinence-based approach, and then some of them go for the intuitive eating approach. The intuitive eating approach is a newer philosophy. And so it's a newer treatment model that a lot of programs in the industry are now starting to embrace, because there's been lots of studies done now on intuitive eating, and it has been found to be very effective. But from what I was taught, it's a totally different experience. Like, I was taught that you don't eat sugar and you don't eat white flour and you have to weigh and measure your food, and it's very rigid. Whereas intuitive eating, like at the very basics, it's like eat until you're full, and then when you're full, don't eat anymore. Which, like, oh my God, if I...
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Like, what? But what I've learned is that it's so much more than that. It's really about being mindful and in tune with your body. And basically it's like you don't restrict anything from your body. So whatever your body is craving or desiring, you allow yourself to eat it. And there is a period of time, and it's normal, but there's a period of time where, as a person who's been kind of programmed by diet culture and, all of that, it's normal for a person to go through this period of like where they feel out of control.
Yeah.
And the way they taught it in this program is they talked about there's diet land and then there's intuitive eating land. And in order to get from diet land to intuitive eating land, you have to go through donut land. And donut land is a place that feels very much out of control because for a lot of people, there's certain foods that we just, because of diet culture or upbringing or whatever, have been programmed to think that these foods are bad or they're not good for us or they're unhealthy or whatever, fill in the blank. And it could be, like, it's not just sweets necessarily, but it could be fast food or it could be carbs or whatever.
It can be anything.
And so when you've programmed your body to not eat those things, or even if you do eat them, but you still view them as being a bad food, your body then kind of goes into this restrictive mentality. And so when you introduce those things again, there is a certain period of time where your body's like, oh my God, we get to have a donut. I haven't had a donut in forever. I must eat all of the donuts.
Before they run out or before I get to my senses and have to stop eating donuts forever.
Right. And so what we learned in this program is that in order to get to this concept of intuitive eating, it first starts with your body learning to trust that you're going to give it what it's craving.
Yeah.
And then eventually you can then learn to trust what your body is craving and be mindful as you're eating and listen to the fullness cues and the hunger cues. And also identify if there's a hunger cue that kicks in, is that truly a hunger cue? Or is something else going on? Is there some other need that my body is feeling that I'm just by default going to food cravings for?
Yeah.
Where really it could be like I'm stressed, or it could be that I'm tired, I need some sleep, or it could be, any number of things. So it's just really, for me, what I understand it to be is more about just awareness. Like awareness about what my body is feeling, what emotions I'm feeling, what physical sensations I'm feeling, and just being mindful. And, the other big part of this is like self-compassion. This program was way more self-compassionate than the previous iterations of treatment that I've been through.
I feel that 1000%. And and how against like intuitive eating I was.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way that can work. Like, I was very like under the impression that it would never work for like a self-proclaimed binge eater / like food addict, sugar addict, that it only works for folks who have had issues with restricting or with starving and stuff, and that they're learning to like let themselves enjoy foods and not punish themselves for it. And it's crazy that I had that kind of compassion and understanding for other people, but when it comes to myself, like with everything, I am my own like worst self-critic. I'm my own worst critic. And I was so on the fence, and I think a factor of why it took me so long to like trust and try treatment again is because of that prior treatment center that I went to like almost 5 years ago now. Was abstinence based, like you said, and it had a very specific eating regimen and food plan that rarely had any snacks in like during the day, and definitely no sugar or white flour. And now I hear that they are lessening those parameters that they used to have that we had experienced. And I'm glad for like future and current clients who attend that. But I think it had, like, I'm finding that I feel like it had a worse effect on me, because if you had told me that I was restricting, I would have laughed in your face and told you to shut the up. You don't know my life, because there is no part of me that restricts, baby. Right. But then I realized I'm depriving myself of these ingredients and of these foods, and it's making, and people would always tell me, like you would tell me, and our friends, a part of like our support system, would say that like your body is acting like this because you're depriving it of what it needs and what it wants, and that makes it even more like taboo. It makes it even more desirable. And when I let myself have that, like last September, I went crazy and off the rails, and I didn't have that self-compassion. I didn't have that belief in intuitive eating. I didn't have all of the important components that you named and that I had learned at the treatment center that I just came back from. And so I learned that all foods fit. There are no bad foods, everything in moderation, and everything in balance. And I don't know why, but just recently, like 2 months ago when I came here, it finally clicked. But before that, you could not have convinced me to even think about trying an intuitive eating approach.
Yeah. Well, and I struggled with that too, you know, because I know people who had also been in the abstinence-based program who then switched and gave the intuitive eating approach a try. And I was so judgmental.
Me too.
I was very judgmental because, you know, like I saw these people kind of go through a period of weight gain.
Yeah.
And I was so judgmental about that. But that's what I found is that is actually normal, especially for someone who's been restricting certain foods for a period of time. And I don't know, for me, the intuitive eating approach, like there's parts of it that I still struggle with, but I'm also very early in the process of following that kind of a program. And really the self-compassion piece is the biggest, I think, for me, that is different. Because, you know, like it's not about judging the types of foods that I'm eating. It's more about identifying what's going on that's causing me to want these foods. Or like, okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. When I was in treatment, this was a few months ago, I had a health issue pop up and I ended up having to be hospitalized.
Yeah.
And afterward, they put me on like a, what do you call it, infusion therapy, where I had to go every day for 2 weeks to get like antibiotics. And they had like a port in my arm that I had to go, and I would just get hooked up. And anyway, it was a whole thing. And I went through a period, and this is when I was in the treatment program. Like I'm dealing with this. And I went through this period of like a week where every day I would stop and get a milkshake from Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why. I was craving milkshakes. And I was honest with the team, in the treatment program that I had been going and getting these milkshakes. And I thought they were going to like get on to me and punish me or whatever. But my therapist was like, well, look at what's going on in your life right now. I mean, you just spent a week in the hospital. You are having to go for this treatment therapy with the infusion therapy. So you got a lot going on. You're taking time off from work, so you're stressed about finances.
Yeah.
You got a lot going on. And it doesn't surprise me. She was like, it doesn't surprise me that you're wanting to turn to milkshake. There's a food that's a comfort food. It's
soothing.
In its purpose, like it's there to give you comfort.
Yeah.
So it makes sense why your body is craving that. And so that was kind of a shift for me in like, okay, it makes sense. Like this is what my body is craving right now. And it's okay. Like I followed what it was craving. I gave it what it was needing. So now my body can learn to trust that I'm going to give it what it wants.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I can start to be more mindful when those situations come up. And I can, in the moment, be able to identify, okay, that's why I'm craving. Like,
yeah,
I do have a lot going on.
Me be more in touch. And that's really what I learned in treatment was like being able to actually tell when I'm starting to get full. And I mean, I had gotten hunger cues back, and I'm grateful for that because I'm able to tell when I'm hungry. I'm able to tell when I'm emotionally hungry, and want to just push feelings and stuff down or like cope with feelings through food. But it had been so hard to tell when I was truly full.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to that point where like I'm able to measure. I always call it like taking my stomach's pulse. I'm able to kind of take an inventory between some bites and be like, okay, I think I'm like in the space right now where I could stop or I could have a few more bites before it gets uncomfortable. And I'm able to tell that, and I'm able to also be like, if I drink water with meals, it's easier for me to eat, whereas if I drink soda with meals, a lot of times I'll feel a lot fuller than I would be otherwise. And it kind of makes my stomach almost like not hurt, but maybe a little uncomfortable because of the bubbles and stuff. But I'm just able to be more mindful and feel out my body, be in touch with my body and in tune with it, when before I was just like, no, I can eat everything. And I still have all of the, like, I have all of the belief in myself that I can still get to that. Like, I can still binge. Nothing is cured. I'm just trying to find balance. And I did, on my way here, I did stop at Baskin Robbins, and I got like a small ice cream, and I was satisfied with it. And actually, you know what? It was too sweet for me. I know.
Well, I'm sorry, what?
It was really sweet. Like, you know how when you're eating something sweet and it's like you can start to feel it in your throat, like, oh, this is like getting really sweet. You don't know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. What is too sweet? I don't.
Like, have you ever had like a lot of caramel or something and you can just taste how sickly sweet it is?
Yeah. I think for me, it's more like if I have cake that's got too much frosting on it.
Yes, that's
a really
exactly
rich, like,
and it starts.
Like it's just too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that, where I could feel like that kind of happening, and I was like, "Is this too much?" But that's been like a common occurrence when I was in treatment too, where we would get to have little special like treats and desserts from time to time for like cooking exposures. And there would be times where I'm like, you know what? I'm actually good on this. I don't need to finish all of this because I'm full, or it's actually too sweet for me, and I'm good with just a few bites of this because eating more is getting uncomfortable.
Well, this is something that I would like to explore in more detail. In fact, I kind of wanted to talk about this to wrap up the episode here, but I was really inspired when I was in treatment, and I came up with this idea of like really where I want to take the podcast.
Yeah.
And I want it to be more than just a podcast. Like, I don't know, I have this passion of being able to help other people who struggle with maybe the same thing and maybe not. Maybe it's just a feeling of being stuck, like stuck in life and not knowing like what your purpose is, or not maybe having an idea of what your purpose is in life, but not knowing how to get to it,
Yeah.
and just feeling kind of stuck. Because I have spent so much of my life feeling like that. And I've used food as a way to cope with a lot of that feeling of just not living out my purpose, or not, I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I mean?
Being held back by the ED and by life and by trauma, and just not giving ourselves the chance to do what we really want to do. And now it's like we're doing that.
Right. And like I want to be able to share that experience with other people. And so I've really been thinking about, what does this podcast represent? What is it? Who is it for? And what do we want to accomplish with it?
Yeah.
And, we came up with the name Unhinged Unicorns because we talk about all sorts of stuff on here.
We're chaotic.
We are a bit chaotic. And so then I was thinking, well, what I'd like to do is create like a wellness brand, like a mental health, wellness, even like maybe a life coaching type brand.
Yeah.
And have the podcast be part of that. But then I was like, well, I don't know if Unhinged Unicorns really describes
Speaks to that.
Yeah, like if that really, sums that up. And so then I was thinking about, different podcast names that we could come up with. And I came up with one. So the reason I'm saying all of this is because you, the audience, I want your feedback on this. Like, we want your help in determining how we should proceed with this idea. And we came up with a different name, and we called it The Vibrant Pathway. And I even came up with a logo for it. And
that logo is really pretty.
Yeah, it looks really nice. But one of the bits of feedback that I got from a friend of mine is that it's kind of vanilla, and it doesn't really have like our personality in it the same way that Unhinged Unicorns does. And I can see that point. But also, when we mention the name Unhinged Unicorns, it doesn't really, to like someone who doesn't listen to us already, they would have no idea what it's about.
They would never know like how deep we can get.
Right. So we need some help in determining how we should proceed. Should we rebrand and call our podcast The Vibrant Pathway? Or should we keep it Unhinged Unicorns and still talk about all of these topics? And we're going to expand it beyond just talking about eating disorder recovery. We want to talk about mental health, and we want to talk about processing emotions and finding your purpose. And we want to talk about spirituality and how that plays a role in all of this, and meditation and procrastination and all these different topics of things that I have struggled with. And, one of the things that I also struggle with as far as like a fear is concerned is I almost feel this like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Where like, because if you look at me, you might think that I know nothing at all about healthy eating. Like just someone looking at me might think that, you know what I mean? And so like the negative self-talk part kicks in, and it's like, well, who's going to listen to you?
Right.
When you don't have your together. But what I'm envisioning is creating a community of people who are just working to improve themselves. And that includes me. Like I'm not at the destination yet. I'm still on the path, so to speak, which is partly why I named it A Vibrant Pathway.
It's like we're trying to do life at every size, and like what our bodies look like and what our appearance isn't a determining factor of our knowledge and our experience.
Exactly. And like, I have spent so much of my life being judgmental toward myself, mostly, that I assume other people would be judgmental. And you know what? There are judgmental people. That's just a reality of life.
We're
But
going to deal with that no matter where we go.
exactly. And so I want to create a safe space for people who are struggling with anything, whether that's your body image or whether that's just feeling lost or feeling a sense of disconnection. I want to provide a safe space for people like that and create a community of people who want to help lift each other up. Like, that's my dream. So if you have a comment on what you would like to hear from us, or if you have feedback on what we should call the podcast, whether that be Unhinged Unicorns, keep it as is, or if we should change the name to The Vibrant Pathway, please leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment below. And if you're listening to this on any other platform, feel free to visit our website. There's a contact us form on there. Or you can email us at contact@unhingedunicorns.com and just give us some feedback. We want to create content that is worth listening to and that is meaningful. And yes, we laugh and we talk about inappropriate, but we also talk about deep stuff too. And that's what we want to continue to do.
Yeah, and I guess to start that off, next episode we're going to talk about being stuck.
Yeah.
And how to get unstuck and our experiences with being stuck.
Yeah, how to kickstart that motivation of getting out of the rut, so to speak. So definitely come back and join us for that episode. And we thank you so much for listening and for joining us today and all of the support that we've gotten from our listeners. We so appreciate it. And until next time, I wish all of you peace and joy and abundance and just a sense of purpose in your life. And we will see you next time. If you like this episode and want to hear more, please visit our website at unhingedunicorns.com. You can also support this podcast and access member-only content by visiting patreon.com/unhingedunicorns.